Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Balance Podcast. The wait is over. We are back. I apologize for the super long hiatus, but it was much needed. I don't want to start the show off on a negative note, but with my past episodes, I've always dedicated it to people or celebrities and figures who have passed. And I feel it's only right to dedicate this episode to people in my life personally who've passed recently. So first and foremost, it may sound silly to y'all, but I want to dedicate this episode to my beloved dog, Prince. He passed away. He was 17 years old. I've had him since I was 9, and I am now 26. So it's a really hard loss. It's really hard to deal with, and so I really want to dedicate this episode to him. He was my light in the darkness, and he's helping me even now keep pushing forward. So I love you, Prince, forever and always. I also want to dedicate this episode to my late grandmother, Sylvia, who was murdered in 2014. And I want to dedicate this episode to my Uncle Steve, who passed away last year from liver cancer. Everyone misses y'all. Everyone loves y'all. And I pray for justice for my grandmother and peace and tranquility for my uncle and my beloved dog. All right, so jumping into this episode. So we're going to talk about Ari Lennox. So she was like spazzing on Twitter because she didn't win a Soul Train award. And I do want to speak on that. People were slandering that, oh, it's just a Soul Train award. I get it. In terms of stature, does it have the relevancy, especially compared to what it once did? No, it doesn't. But again, like I've said previous times, we uplift the Grammys and all these things, and we need to uplift our own spaces. You know, I get the BET isn't black owned; it's owned by Viacom, but calling it EBT awards, things like that, like no, we need to give relevancy. We need to give stature to our own spaces. So anyway, Ari's a soul artist, and she was upset that she didn't win the award. I get it, because even with my podcast, when I don't get all of the love or the clamor or people to help me promote it or people to listen or it's the support that I feel like I deserve because I pour so much into these episodes, even if it doesn't always seem like it, I get frustrated sometimes. I get hurt. I want to quit. I want to stop, but I keep going, and I think Ari will too. I think she's just having a rightful moment. People are entitled to vent. They're still human, celebrity or not. But I do think, there's kind of a space and time type of thing. Like, I don't know, she should have poured it all out on Twitter necessarily in the way that she did. Because, yes, it could also make her look like a sore loser. It can make her, I guess, like people were saying, entitled or whatever. I mean, it don't always create the best of looks, So I get it. But I think she had the right to vent. I just think that maybe she needs to vent less, or watch how she words things, or maybe just do it to your friends and like vent to your friends, not on social media, because I think that we all sometimes need to take a step back. It can be a helpful, I won't even call it a safe space necessarily, because Twitter is not always safe, but it can be that vent source, especially if you don't necessarily have the people around you to do so. But just I guess with everything, moderation. But kind of moving forward. So Colin Kaepernick had his workout in Atlanta, and I don't know all the details, but I know it was very sudden, and it was on a Saturday, which was a bad day. So it's clear that the NFL set him up. TMZ and other news sources posted an article saying that Jay-Z felt like by moving it to a new location and with the media that Colin Kaepernick made it a PR spectacle, a PR stunt. Do I think Jay said it? I will say that when Jay-Z's spoken before, it's always been directly. Like, you see him in a video speaking. You see him in a direct quote. They're saying, sources and people at Rock Nation. Rock Nation denied the rumors. And just in general, I think Jay would have been blunt with what he had to say. So I don't necessarily think that he said it. Do I think he might have thought it? Possibly. Do I think he might have had issue with it? Possibly. Jay-Z is not necessarily on our side like we've believed or that people continue to believe. So, and we've seen that with his NFL venture and with, supporting and donating money to people who cut off dreads and make children feel that they have to change their hair and who they are to succeed in this life. So, Jay-Z isn't the best. So I don't know. Anyway, I was on this forum and I posted it also on Twitter in terms of who do people think is the better husband, Jay-Z or Kanye? Putting aside all of the foolishness, shenanigans, ignorance of Kanye West, I do think that he loves Kim out loud. He worships the ground that she walks on, you know. I find, like, yeah, Jay-Z has rapped about Beyonce in his songs, but I feel like Beyonce just loved him so enormously out loud compared to him. And I know everybody has different love languages, ways of expressing love, showing love, but I mean, it's telling, you know, to me. Also knowing that he bagged her at such a young age, and again, it might be an unpopular opinion, but I do think there was some grooming there. Like, she dated one guy before that, but that was like middle and high school. Jay is the man that she's known most of her, like all of her adult life, basically dated basically all of her adult life, and knew at such a young age when her brain was still forming and developing. Because at 18, 19, 20, like, yeah, you're grown legally, but you're not grown. Like, I'm so different from how I was those ages. I look back there and I'm like, at those ages, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I was a hot mess. I did not know it all. I was not so wise. I was not so knowledgeable like I thought. And so he was a way older man. There's a 12-year age difference. He took advantage of it. And people can fight me for it, but that's my opinion, and that's what I feel like. So it's those dynamics at play. And also the fact that we know he cheated on her possibly multiple times, caused her so much stress that she miscarried, by his own acknowledgement. And, you know, that's just not a healthy love. And it's like, yeah, in the end, he sought therapy to fix it. But why didn't you seek therapy beforehand? Why didn't you seek it at least after the first time that you hurt her? And, you know, I mean, just why was it in a preventive? Why was it a reactionary measure to where you're about to lose everything, you know, type of thing? Why did you let it get to that point? Where is that level of love and discernment, you know? So for me, I would put Kanye as the better husband, and I'm using all the air quotes in the world because, one, we don't know these people's lives and it's all speculation, and two, I mean, when it's Kanye West, I mean, I don't know how much good you can get, but just from an outside perspective, what we see and what we do know of, I think that he's the better husband. And, you know, that's just me. You know, Beyonce has to drag Jay everywhere because she can't trust him. So anyway, also in the hiatus, T.I., you know, he put all of his daughter Deja's business out there. She since unfollowed him and I think deleted her social media. He's going to be on Red Table Talk. My only comments on this situation is that his daughter virginity is none of his business. It is not good parenting like some people want to say. It is an invasion of privacy. It is disrespectful. It's not a sign of respect. It's not a sign of trust. And again, it's her body. She can do with it what she chooses. T.I. is the last person to, you know, have any type of comment on women and what they do. I mean, just given that he doesn't respect his own wife, he dogs her out in these streets. I mean, constantly cheating and telling her, like, or saying, were you at odds with her, and saying that she's only mad 'cause people know about it. I mean, T.I.'s ultimate scum when it comes to his wife. So, it, you know, he definitely shouldn't put her business out there on social media, and I hope that Deja has a good support system around her and that she doesn't have to. I feel like she might, you know, again, there's that term of, some people are calling this abuse, and I can definitely argue a point for it being financial abuse, because I'm sure she depends on him for her financial resources, and, you know, emotional abuse in the sense that that's her dad, so she's, you know, she doesn't want to upset him. She possibly doesn't want to rock the boat with financial security until she can create her own. So it's those types of things that force coercion into her having to sign over to say, yeah, he can know, and having to do this. But again, thoughts towards Deja, and I don't think that he should be on Red Table Talk. I don't think that he should be given a side or explanation. I think that the victim should be Deja. I think she should be given a voice. Remember, when you have a platform, it's very important to give a voice to the right people. So the last thing I want to discuss before we head into our main topic of the show, which is sustainability, and I'll have an interview with that later on, I want to discuss the Alexis Crawford story, which has garnered, I believe, nationwide attention. So Alexis Crawford, 21-year-old senior at Clark Atlanta University, obviously in Atlanta, in HBCU, she was reported missing by her family on November 1st, and her body was discovered about a week or so ago. And the suspects in the case have been arrested. Allegedly, Jordan Jones, her roommate, 21 years old, and Barrett Brantley, 21 years old, the boyfriend of Jordan Jones, have been arrested and charged with malice murder. So the story goes, so basically a few days before she was murdered, on October 27th, I believe, she filed a police report and accused Barrett Brantley of allegedly assaulting and raping her. She did get a rape kit done at Grady Hospital, and in today's recent report, when Jordan Jones was denied bail, and it was mentioned that she tried to cover up the rape and assault even after Alexis Crawford's death. She allegedly tried to cover it up. Let me add that in there. It was confirmed that Barron Brantley's DNA was found. It was confirmed by the rape kit that was done. So yes, so she filed that report, and then a few days later she goes missing. So naturally people started to suspect her roommate Jordan Jones, but she was posting on social media like, help me find my friend, help me find my roommate. But allegedly what went down, and they believe that she was murdered on Halloween. They believe that, according to the confessions of both Jordan Jones and Barron Brantley, that Jordan and Alexis got into a fight. Barron Brantley jumped in and began choking Alexis Crawford to death. Jordan Jones then allegedly grabbed a plastic bag, covered her face, and helped suffocate her. And they buried her in a park. Well, I don't even think they buried her. They just dumped her body, which was in a plastic bin, in a park in Decatur. Now, according to 11 Alive and various other news sources and outlets, Jordan Jones allegedly has been trying to cover up the alleged rape, assault of Alexis Crawford by Jordan Jones's boyfriend, Barron Brantley. She tried to do it even after the murder, and she contacted the victim's family and tried to tell them that there was no DNA found of Barron Brantley's. However, 11 Alive News said that the rape kit confirmed and found Barron Brantley's DNA, so that was a lie. Now, I don't know how many crime shows, members of the Bounce fam watch, but if you were to look up how long it takes to suffocate, smother, and strangle someone, and you set a timer and you just sat there in complete silence, you would see that it is a really long time. You have to have an underlying hatred, hostility, jealousy, something like that to be able to do that. Now, Barron Brantley allegedly assaulted, raped her. There's his motive right there. Motive hasn't been firmly established by the police yet, but that is a likely grounds. There's that reason. He already had a rap sheet a mile long, which includes, I believe, robbery, cruelty to children, different charges. So, and Jordan Jones had a DUI misdemeanor, I believe, in Michigan, where she's from. But anyway, so that right there will give you motive. But I kind of want to speak to Jordan. I feel like, and I'm speaking on a personal opinion thing, I feel like she has some kind of underlying hatred, jealousy, or something underneath. Like, that's how she felt towards Alexis in order to do that. I don't know. And I believe that her boyfriend wanting, as she saw it in her eyes, wanting, even though rape and abuse, all that's about control. In Jordan's eyes, she saw that her boyfriend wanted another woman. He wanted Alexis, and that pushed her over the edge. There was something already underneath there, and that just helped drive her forward with her alleged act. So just be careful who you claim as friends, who you bring around. And that's the thing. Like, I feel so bad because her family, Alexis and her family, invited and had Jordan Jones over for Easter and Thanksgiving, especially Thanksgiving, a deeply personal family, holiday experience. And I don't know what Jordan's relationship was like with her parents, but I do find it odd that she didn't spend Thanksgiving with them. And maybe she saw the close-knit family, the big family of Alexis, and that, made her jealous. I don't know. But to just know that you sat down at the table, with your child's murderer, it's crazy. So my thoughts and prayers, alleged murderer, my thoughts and prayers are with her family, because they have to cope with so much. They have to cope with not only the loss of their beloved daughter in a tragic way, they have to cope with knowing who allegedly did it and having an actual relationship. They described Alexis and Jordan as two peas in a pod. And again, she spent time with the family. So there's that. And then knowing your daughter in her last days was allegedly violated and assaulted and raped, that's a lot. That's a burden for the family. I pray for her 9 siblings, and I pray for Alexis herself, her spirit. I pray that, all of them find as much peace as possible. I pray that, they get justice for her. And for me, Jordan is a bigger betrayal because that's what she trusted. That's what she believed in. That was her friend, And then you turn around and you do this. You first don't have her back, when it comes to her alleged assault and rape. You still are with the man, inviting him over into the space. Like, just the levels to that, And it's just like some For My Man, stuff. And anyway, it just, and then like, then to help allegedly take her, like you allegedly helped take her life, like that's just, I can't imagine what Alexis is going through in her last minutes, her last thoughts, all of this. So I just pray for her. And it's just, I'm just, Jordan Jones is just evil to me, like just pure evil. Anyway, just a little bit of update. She was, denied bail and declared a flight risk in court today. But we're going to take a quick break and then we'll be right back. Hey, Balance Fam, it's your host, your girl, Kaylee. I just want to really, really stress that please subscribe. Please help spread the word. Tell your friends about the show. Help retweet. Mention me when you're listening or just tweeting in general. Just use the hashtag The Balance Podcast. That would mean the world to me and the show. Also, if you haven't already, please take the time during this break to go and leave a review and rate the show. It'll help immensely. And I just want to thank you again for tuning in. Keep tuning in. You mean a lot to me. Thank you, fam. All right, we'll be right back soon. Hi, everybody. We are back with Jonelle Dawkins, who I've had the pleasure of getting to know over the last few months. She's a current MBA student at North Carolina A&T, and she previously attended UGA. And so today we'll be discussing various aspects of sustainability. But first, I just want to ask you, so what sparked your passion and interest in sustainability?
Well, my passion for sustainability started when I was in high school and I was required to do 20 hours of community service a semester. And so I tried to find a place that I could work locally so I'd be able to get those hours done. And I found a food pantry within like a mile from my house.
Mm-hmm.
And when I worked there, I processed paperwork for people who live very, very close to me. And it really hit home to me that we have so many people who are facing hunger in America, and they're literally down the street from me. And I know there's like this statistic that 1 in every 3 American child goes hungry, but to see that and to feel that while also looking at the pantry literally throw away food because we couldn't give away certain things just because of paperwork, it
Mm-hmm.
really frustrated me to see we have so many resources in just this country alone
Mm-hmm.
that we can distribute amongst people, but we're just not giving it out. So I decided I would dedicate my career to towards looking for sustainable ways to build up communities. And I was going to do that through studying fashion and helping people in the garment industry keep their communities healthy, even while producing clothes for retailers.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so just kind of speaking to a few things you were saying, like in terms of seeing hunger up close. So I definitely get that. Like I volunteered during undergrad at Georgia State, and Atlanta has a huge homeless population.
Mm-hmm.
And so I volunteered to work with the homeless and I fed them peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And it was just crazy, how grateful they were for that. It's something that we think of as like a struggle meal or a toss away. We don't want it. Like it's just, bare minimum,
Yeah.
but they loved it and they were so appreciative. And I just loved having that moment with them and just learning about their lives. And it was really impactful, just kind of like what you were saying, seeing things up close. And in terms of resources, like, especially when it comes to like marginalized voices, minorities, all that, we always talk about, lack of access to resources, which is incredibly valid. But also there's times where we do have resources in the community that we don't know about. So it's like, we have to make sure that we're aware of what we do have and that we do use them. So just a little bit of things related to what you were saying. But just kind of back on, the topic, what are some ways that we can reduce our impact?
Well, some ways that we can reduce our impact is just start with our home. I know a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people think that they have to just throw everything out if it's not sustainable, but that makes things even worse. We need to keep the things that we do have now and just use them. Don't just buy new toothpaste just because your current toothpaste isn't good. Like go ahead, use that up, and then when you buy things anew, then try looking for things that are have organic ingredients, or even try getting things that are used. Like you can go to the thrift store and get things like dishes and home decor and even books. And there are some websites like betterworldbooks.com that have books that you can buy. They're used, they're pretty good prices, and every book you buy helps bring educational resources to children around the world. So you have to think about the things that you bring into your life to help reduce your impact.
Hmm. Absolutely. And then just kind of related, because I know you're from like the Athens area in terms of attending UGA, and I lived there for a while, and a lot of our listeners are from Athens. And so like you were talking about like how, certain thrift stores, like different, groups have great causes that they're working towards. And so that
Mm-hmm.
reminds me of like Project Safe in Athens.
Yeah.
Yeah, and how they're working to help, women and victims of domestic violence and things of that nature. So yeah, totally get it. Um, so yeah, and just kind of like where we're talking, it's the holiday season. Thanksgiving is next week. Christmas is around the corner. So do you have like any tips for holiday shopping?
Yes. Because your holiday shopping habits are just a bigger reflection of your regular spending habits. Because now you're not just buying for yourself, you're buying for others. So use this as a time to get creative with your holiday shopping. Sometimes you can give things like experiences, like trips to the museum or the movies, and things like that, which are really good for the environment because you don't have to wrap up a gift to the museum. You're making a memory and an experience with your friends or your loved ones. You can also even consider like making your own gifts. You could bake some cookies and put them in mason jars and just put a ribbon on them. And it's very cost effective and it shows love and effort. And you're also not having to buy something completely new and unwrapping it. And you can even go to the thrift store and buy things like there are some consignment stores that have designer goods that you can get for deeply discounted prices. And they're in really good condition and people really appreciate like gifts that really speak to them. So give thoughtfully and not just give just because you have to give.
Mm-hmm. And like you were saying, like with giving thoughtfully and experiences, it just reminds me, like I read so many articles about things that millennials are killing. And first of all, people don't realize that millennials are like older than they think. It's like early mid 20s to like 38 years old, stuff like that. Like Beyonce, Serena, all of them are millennials, Meghan Markle
Mm-hmm.
included. People don't realize that. But they say like, oh, millennials are killing this, that, and the third. One thing that we're doing is that we're actually promoting experiences over material things, which is kind of related to what you were saying. And I think it's very important because, again, like this Maya Angelou quote that goes around is that, you'll remember how they made you feel. Like you'll remember that
Mm-hmm.
feeling, so that, investing in experiences, that's what matters. So just kind of, on this kind of pathway, since we're talking about like generations and how people think and view things. So on social media, there's a backlash against individualized sustainability and climate change efforts. So there's this sense going around of like, yes, I should make better decisions to help the planet and everything like that. But at the same time, will my efforts even matter considering the actions of, like the elite, the wealthy corporations? And so many people feel like the burden should mostly rest on those elite people, the wealthy and corporations. So what's your take on it? What's your opinion?
I believe that everyone is responsible.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it sucks because a lot of times marginalized groups are the ones who are just blamed when we're not the ones driving gas guzzling G Wagons and stuff like that. But we also patronize these stores.
Mm-hmm.
And our dollars tell companies a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I've been reading a lot of trend reports about companies' initiatives with including more sustainable and compostable packaging because they're reacting to the way Generation Z and also millennials are more conscious about the environment. We're asking more questions and we're holding companies accountable
Mm-hmm.
versus older generations like baby boomers who are more loyal to the brand that they've been using their whole lives. We're starting to question those things. And now companies are starting to improve on things. So we, as millennials and as Generation Z and later Generation Alpha, they have to continue to push the envelope with companies and demand that we have supply chain transparency because companies aren't going to do anything if we don't say anything. They'll think that it's okay to continue to have products with phthalates and petrolatum and all those harmful chemicals. But if they see that we ask, then they're going to even have special product categories. They're going to cater towards more demographics, like, for example, how Target and Walmart are starting to include more smaller natural hair brands such as Urban Hydration and Uncle Funky's Daughter, because they see that Black women want to support ourselves, and we don't want to buy Pantene and L'Oreal if it's not going to help our hair.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. And I'm just sorry, you just threw me off when you said Generation Alpha. I'm like, dang, I'm old. Like, I already have Z underneath me. Now you're talking about Alpha. So I'm just like taking a moment. Like, I'm a granny. Let me go get my AARP card. But anyways, so just, yeah, just kind of just like, piggybacking off what you're saying, like, I say all the time on the show, like, stand for your principles. Like, if you don't have to,
Yes.
if it's not a necessity, then don't shop at that place, because your dollar's missing will send a signal and you'll get the change that you want, just like you were saying. And, I've done a lot of research lately related to like some of my classes and corporate social responsibility. That's a huge
Mm-hmm.
thing because more people, like you were saying, they want to see social responsibility. It was somewhere between like 62 and 80%. Like, they want to see social responsibility. And if a company doesn't have it, if they don't like what they're doing in terms of social causes and things like that, they'll boycott. They're out. So like you're saying, it matters. Like, your dollars matter, and how you spend your money, it does matter, and it does send messages to the company. So again, just talking about generations, millennials, alphas, everybody in the world. So it's, there's a generation of receipts. We want to see it.
Yeah.
So what are some like facts and figures surrounding sustainability and the benefits that come from individualized efforts that you can kind of present?
Well, first, I like to just preface this answer with an anecdote,
Mm-hmm.
because when I think about individualized efforts, I always think of Jadolf Payam. He's still alive, and he lives in India, and he noticed that there are many like dead snakes that were turning up in his surrounding neighborhood,
Mm-hmm.
because the sandbars are drying up and due to erosion. And so there was a project to start planting bamboo shoots. And even when the project ended, he continued to plant seedlings and bamboo shoots like every day. And he ended up planting so much, like over like a couple of decades, so like it ended up making a forest the size of Central Park. And there are a lot of animals that had left the region because it was drying out, and they just couldn't survive there, but they started to come back. So then there's ended up being rhinoceroses and tigers and all these like amazing animals coming back, because he decided to keep this project going and keep planting a seedling every day. So
Mm-hmm.
we might think, okay, what's it gonna hurt if I drink a bottle of plastic water every day,
Mm-hmm.
a plastic bottle of water every day? Then you're making like a bigger impact than you think. Because, for example, if you just stop drinking plastic bottles of water for a month, that's 30 bottles of water. And because our recycling often gets contaminated, only one out of every five of those bottles would end up actually making it to the recycling center. So you're making a bigger impact than you think. And even when we just look like under our sinks, because we like to keep the plastic bags under the sink, if we just started using reusable bags, we're not going to have a whole sink covered in plastic bags after like a while, because we're starting to like bring in less and being more conscious about what we're doing, and we're resonating that with others. And once we have our individual efforts, we also start making waves within our communities and as a nation.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And thank you, because you're putting it in a way that people can kind of relate to and grasp. So thank you, because that's really important. And also, on behalf of the Balance Podcast, I would like to thank you for appearing on the show today.
Oh, yeah, thank you for having me.
No problem. So we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back. Hey fam, we're back, and we have a listener letter this week. So it goes a little something like this. I made a passive aggressive remark about the way the kitchen is kept up in the roommate group chat, and there has been so much tension ever since. One roommate says everything that's bothering her anytime she feels like it in the group chat, and there's never any hostility. And honestly, I don't know what to do. Every time we cross paths, she's so icy, and I've made efforts to be friends with her before this all happened, but I'm tired of being the bigger person. I don't even keep my dishes in the kitchen anymore, and she still complains about her own dishes that she leaves in the sink and other things. I don't know if I should just settle for the tension or try to make peace. Okay, the crazy part about this is I'm notorious for my horrible roommates that I've had. I think I only had like one roommate that didn't get on my nerves. I'll share roommate stories later. I'm just gonna kind of answer this question right now. But okay, first off, passive aggressive isn't gonna get you anywhere. They always say closed mouths don't get fed. You just have to be direct with things. I get not trying to stir the pot or tension, but either way, like as you can see, trying to be a good person, go about things a sugar-coated way isn't working, and there's still tension. So just always try to limit being passive aggressive. Own how you feel and own your words. Also, I would say, like, especially because everybody else is just saying what they want to say in the group chat, that you have the right to do the same. And I also, like, especially if the listener is black, we always feel like we have to be the bigger person, but sometimes no, like, we're not going to be the bigger person. So it's kind of like, you just can't live in this like environment where, you're just walking on eggshells and there's a lot of tension. So when Shawty's being icy, like just like, hey, like what's the issue? Let's sit down and talk, and then just kind of go from there. But make sure that whatever, like when you're having this conversation with her, make sure that you're recording it. You always want evidence and facts behind it, just in case anything pops off. You want to have something against the other person. Like you want to have your evidence proving that you're not an aggressor, that you're not starting anything, that you're trying to talk about something calmly and rationally. So that's one thing I advise. I would definitely sit down and talk with her, but make sure that you're recording it so you have your own back and you're protecting yourself. So that's just kind of the thing. Not keeping your dishes in the kitchen anymore, I feel like you're giving too much power to them. I'm going to keep my dishes there, and maybe that'll make her come say something, but I wouldn't I feel like you're giving away too much of your power and letting them take hold too much of the situation. Keep your dishes in the kitchen where they belong, and that's that. If they touch your dishes, let it be a problem. But yeah, just stop giving them so much energy and so much power, And then if she's complaining about the dishes that she leaves in the sink, just remind her, like, those are your dishes in the sink, right? Like, there's some kind of underlying problem to why she's so mad. And that needs to be talked through and worked out. And, I mean, in the end, it might not get you any peace. And there still might be tension, but at least you were holding true to yourself and not lowering yourself for anyone, You can only do the best that you can. I've had similar situations with roommates. So just kind of get into my story a little bit. So I had one roommate. We fell out. We were friends before we were roommates. I met her at Georgia State. And we were in I forgot, this freshman program where you have all the same classes with people. I forgot what it was called. And so we were friends for that. And it wasn't until junior year that we ended up living together. Big mistake. We got into a fight about a trash can because she wouldn't take out the trash, and she's like, well, you use it more than I do. But I'm like, you still put stuff in the trash can. Am I right or am I wrong? Like, I'm just asking you to take it out once or twice a week. So we had an issue with that. We stopped talking for a week or two when we lived together, and then we discussed the issue, but our friendship was never the same, and we never really talked again after that. Meanwhile, we had kept in touch a lot before then. But I mean, at the end of the day, she had a problem with, the way I cooked food. She didn't like the way it smelled. She was Asian, I'm black. I was gonna keep cooking the food the way I did. I did try to have a common ground where some of the time I would turn the vent on, but that's because she at least came to me respectfully about it, and so that's why I found that common ground to help bridge it. But it doesn't sound like your roommate's being respectful, so I don't necessarily see why you need to kind of bend to her will. She has to meet you halfway, So there's that. Also, I've had a roommate my senior year, the worst roommate ever by far. Eventually, I had to, for my mental health, leave the apartment early to protect myself. It was very icy. It was fights. We just didn't get along unless we were drinking together. It was very toxic situation. And if your situation's like that, I don't know if you have the capacity to leave it, but just do the best that you can for you. Just kind of what I said stuff earlier. But yeah, just try not to bend too much. I hope this was helpful. But yeah, I mean, that roommate was terrible. If it makes you feel any better, I can tell you more about this story. She was, slamming doors and cabinets all night long, trying to wake me up, keep me up. And I mean, she ate my food once. We had a lot of issues. So, I mean, again, we really only got along when we were drinking. And did I mention that she had brought like a felon into our apartment? Like, she was dating this guy who was like 10 years older than her and me, and she was like a year or two younger than me, so actually 12 years older than her. Or like, he had a robbery charge or whatever. And one day I came back from the Future concert at Georgia State and found out that she was arrested in jail over a threesome, according to the police report that I just so happened to find and read. So anyway, if that makes you feel better about your roommate situation, I hope so. I hope I was helpful. So yeah, before we wrap up the show today, I want to acknowledge a couple of things. So November is National Native American Heritage Month. So shout out to all the indigenous peoples. That's why I refer to them by. Native Americans is their given name because it wasn't named America until, the evil people got here. So I want to shout that out. It's also Epilepsy Awareness Month. And so I want to kind of share some seizure first aid tips with you. So stay with the person, like don't leave them. Just remain calm as much as you can, of course, and just check for a medical ID. Make sure that you keep them safe. Move them away from anything that might injure them. Make sure that you turn them onto their side, especially if they're not awake and aware. Make sure that you don't block their airway, and make sure that you put something soft under their head and loosen any tight clothes around their neck. Don't put anything in their mouth. Don't give them water, pills, or food, or anything until they're awake. But do not restrain them. That's important. Like, keep them comfortable and safe, but don't restrain them. And just stay with them until they're awake and alert after the seizure. And they usually end in a few minutes. But when to call 911 if it's lasting longer than 5 minutes. If it's repeated seizures, if they're having difficulty breathing, especially if the seizures in water, or if the person's injured, pregnant, or sick, and they don't return to their normal state, make sure that you call 911. Also, it is Diabetes Awareness Month, and diabetes definitely affects Black people a lot. So I wanted to make sure that I took the time to mention that. So a couple of things about diabetes. More than 30 million people in the United States have diabetes, and 1 in 4 don't even know it. So that's very important. And then there's a thing called prediabetes, and more than 84 million U.S. adults, that's over a third, have prediabetes, and 90% of them don't know it, and that's huge. Now, not to be scary, but diabetes is the 7th leading cause of death in the United States, and it actually might be underrepresented and underreported. So it could be even worse. And again, I told you African Americans are very prone to diabetes, especially type 2. So it's very important to mention like things that can help. So manage your A1C, manage your cholesterol, things of that nature, manage your blood pressure. Those are very important. That wraps up today's show. Please be sure to continue tuning in, of course, and also rate, review, and subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Google Play, however you get it, however you live, however you listen. Make sure that you keep doing it. Also, please make sure that you check out my website, Who Creates, KAE, whocreates.wixsite, WIXSITE.com/The Balance Podcast. You can find all the podcast episodes there. You can find all the blog posts there, and it'll be much more as we grow and expand. Also, make sure that you sign up for our email list. You can find the link on both of my pages, especially the page for the actual show. So yeah, just keep on pushing, keep on listening, grow, glow for show. I'm out. See y'all next week.